everyone, Teri Wellbrock here, host of the Healing Place podcast, and just wanted to share some quick announcements before today's wonderful episode. The audiobook production, that's so exciting. I'm in book number 4 right now. The first 2 books, The Energy Medicine Solution, Mind-Blowing Results for Living an Extraordinary Life, written by Jacqueline M. Kane, as well as The Wellness Woman, A Guide to Holistic Health and Happiness, written by Carrie Hendricks. Both are out in the world of Audible, so go check those out. You can look up Teri Wellbrock in order to find both of those, probably the easiest way to do so. And if you go to my Facebook page, Facebook The Healing Place Podcast, there are posts that I'm putting out. You can just scroll back through the posts and find either of those books, and you can find some links if you are not yet on Audible. Another quick exciting announcement is that I went to pop on my host, Blueberry, my hosting site the other day, and noticed that the podcast had jumped from being downloaded in 125 countries to 134 countries. It's not listed what are the new countries, so I would have to go back and really do some digging. But so 9 countries, people in 9 different countries have found this show. So yay! I'm so excited. I joined previous podcast guest Michael Andre Ford on his show. If you go to YouTube to Michael Andre Ford, he has an Angels, Positivity, and Love show. Angels, Positivity, and Love. And so my interview with him will be coming up as a guest on his show October 15th. So mark that on your calendars. It was a beautiful, wonderful interview, conversation. And then what else is on my list? The podcast, the Healing Place podcast, has some new badges have been awarded. Some of the ones that I've had and been sharing with folks, over 100,000 listeners, been podcasting over 6 years now. Holy moly. That's so amazing. Global reach, obviously, in 134 countries. Now over 300, I think I'm like at 310 episodes published. And still working to bring in monetization and sponsors. So if you are listening and want to sponsor this show and have a healing product or an offering and want to be a sponsor, please go to my website, teriwellbrock.com, and you can go to the Donate Now tab, and that brings up sponsorship opportunities. Been doing affiliate partnerships, so working with the Shift Network, doing some affiliate work and sharing their programs, which are just amazing, as well as the Gupta program, which I utilize myself, some amazing meditations. So again, you can always reach out to me at info@teriwellbrock.com. That's my email for the show, info@teriwellbrock.com. And ask me about any of these things. I'm always open to hearing from folks. So if you want information about the Gupta program, about the Shift Network, I've also just started a Creator Connector campaign through Amazon, through my affiliate link with Amazon, and so I'll be putting a lot of products out. I'm thinking about creating a page on my website for it and keep it rolling and updated. But certainly on the Facebook page, you can find products I've used personally or products that I've researched that will help you along your healing journey. The Healing Place podcast, if you go to FeedSpot, 90 Best Healing Podcasts, the Healing Place podcast is number 6. Woohoo! So yeah, 90 Best Healing Podcasts. So exciting. And finally, the last thing is 5-star reviews. If you love the show and would write a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that would be so amazing. I would love to hit 100 by year end. Right now, I think I'm at 50 something, or maybe 60. I think I'm over 60. yeah, that would be so fantastic. So go to Apple Podcasts, find the Healing Place podcast, and write a review and or leave a ranking. That would be fantastic. Just again, so very grateful that you're here and part of this, inviting others to listen and helping this show just continue to blossom and grow. So, all right, now for the show. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, and very happy in my heart today to have with me Tina Davidson, and she is a composer. And oh my gosh, I've listened to some of her music on Spotify. And as a matter of fact, I just had some on. I thought I'm going to get into the groove before we connect. And also an author. She's recently released her memoir, and she's here to talk about that and so much more. So welcome, Tina.
Oh, my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, for sure. And again, I love your music. I was just listening to, is it Blue Curve?
Here.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. And it just starts out, it's just very simple, and then it just builds and builds and builds. And I'm not I don't know how to talk about the music properly other than that I just loved it. I love when it gets to the middle. Oh, beautiful. So, and it seems to be like when I read reviews on your music, that seems to be one of your pieces that just really resonates with folks.
Well, and it's an amazing virtuosic violinist, and that performance. So it's on Spotify. Yeah, Blue Curve of the Earth. It's sort of like, you know, how it's almost like the sun is coming from the edge of the earth and starting to slowly reveal it. And it's what we call home, you know, it's our place. So it's kind of an ode to the earth.
That's beautiful. I live on Hilton Head Island, and one of our favorite things to do is go out onto the beach and watch the sunrise. But my daughter was even saying, I like to get there early before, like just as the sky is starting to light up, because it's a whole process of that sun coming up and then lighting up the world.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm such a my music tastes are so crazy eclectic, but I grew up in a household. My mom loved opera and so in classical music. And so on Sundays, particularly, she would just blast that in our little apartment. And so I grew up listening to it. Deflator Mouse, I remember, like that was one of her favorites. And so, don't ask me to like what it is. If I heard it, I wouldn't know that was the name of it. But
well, and I'm also an author, so I just published a memoir, which is also doing really well. But in it, I talk a lot about my creative process and how I create music. I don't talk about it in technical terms, but, you know, like the feeling that I have. So like this piece, The Blue Curve of the Earth, it's a title that I held in my head while I was writing the music. So I was always thinking about the colors and the you know, even from the moon, there's that beautiful shot of the earth, and, you know, how the oceans are so blue. And so that those words sort of are there with me as I journey to compose the piece. And I've been writing for 45 years, so it's kind of my language now. So it was a real pleasure to really talk about it, about my creative process in ways that I would hope that people could understand without having to know anything about classical music or new music.
Right. That's beautiful. So you brought up your memoir, and it is Let Your Heart Be Broken. And so, yes, talk to us about the inspiration behind writing it.
Well, I will read you a little bit about, right at the beginning, after the I guess it's the author's notes. It starts off, I was at a conference in the 80s, right at the height of the AIDS epidemic, when people we knew, especially in the arts, were dying, and their families or their loved ones were taking care of them. And there was not only these, you know, it was a horrible disease, and it would hit young men and women in the prime of their life. And I think sometimes we forget, as we've gone through COVID, that some of us have gone through another epidemic of that kind of sort. And so I was at a conference that was for people who've been helping young people die, for them to get some resources. And one of the audience members said, what is the meaning of life? And this was Stephen Levine, who was hosting this, and he's a poet and an author, and he worked with Kubler-Ross on death and dying, and he had some wonderful ideas about it. So he's asked, what is the meaning of life? And he says, well, I'm asked that all the time, and I'm not really sure, but I think the meaning of life is to let your heart be broken. And then I write, the heart, the round sphere of your being, let your heart be broken, allow, expect, look forward to the life you have so carefully protected and cared for, broken, cracked, rent into. Heartbreakingly, your heart breaks, and in the two halves, rocking on the table, is revealed rich earth, moist, dark soil, ready for new life to begin. So the book is really about my journey of dealing with my heartbreak, which happened early in life, really as a 3-year-old, and the ramifications of it, the echoes through my younger life until I was in my 30s, and finding that the only way to go out of this situation is to go through it. And that I was so surprised how much wealth there was for me in terms of sustainability and self-recreation after this kind of difficult process that I decided to undertake. And how not only was I living through it, but I was also writing music about it as well. I have a piece that was written in that time period called Dark Child Sings, and it was for cello quartet, but it was about that dark child in me, and that I wanted to allow, I don't know why, I always thought of him as him. I wanted him to, or her to, have a voice. And so I wrote a piece thinking about that, to give that child in me a voice. So that's what my book is about. And that's really been my journey. And I think, everybody's heart gets broken. It happens all the time. And it happened in the past, and it will probably happen in the future at some point, either a disappointment or even, having your last child leave your house and grow up and leave. It has a certain kind of heartbreak in it. And so it's a continual process, I think. Once you get some skills in doing some of it, then you realize you just have to keep on doing it.
Yes. Well, first off, I want to go back and say I loved the visual of the moist, dark earth, because you and I had talked for just a few moments before I hit record and talked about that going into the darkness. And as you read those beautiful words, they're very poetic. I just had that visual of being the seed, and then it just bursting open through that dark soil and that new growth.
Well, and that kind of horrifying moment when you realize your heart is broken, but you're also protecting it. You're hiding it, you're putting it behind you. You hope you can move on. And for me, what I found is it was kind of like this puppeteer. Sometimes I would act out things or do things that I almost had no control of, that were related to my trauma. Maybe, a boyfriend I picked. That's pretty common for people who've been abused as a child, to pick abusive partners. And it's almost like you can't stop it. And so this really, walking into that heartbreak, really allowed me a new kind of freedom that came with knowledge. And how do I deal with it when I have lots of skeletons in my closet. There's a closet over there. And every once in a while they come out, but now I'm getting good at it. I go, hey, what are you doing? Hey, get back to the closet. And they go, well, I have a complaint. I said, I'm here. Tell me what your complaint is. usually it's like, how could you do that? Usually it's that kind of thing. And I'll say, I'll handle it. Thanks for letting me know. You know,
Yeah.
now go back to what your job is. Usually it's a kid, an old voice, a child voice, or maybe it's a judgmental voice in my head. And so that's a great thing to learn how to do.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I've practiced that. There's like parts work, and it's those parts of us that came in to be the protector or to be the voice. And I love it because yes, when you can say, okay, that was your job then, but it's okay. I've got it now. I can do this. I'm an adult. I figured it out. Yeah.
And I always feel that those parts of me have something to do. It's usually playing. They need to go back and do their thing and let me handle whatever the situation. And I always appreciate it. I'm usually go, oh, honey, I know you're scared. I'm kind of scared too. But I've done this before. I'll do it again. Yeah.
Right.
So that can help me a lot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Something you had said triggered me to thinking, oh, so my sister and I talk about the chaos that we grew up in. And you're right. Before you step through the darkness and do that powerful healing work, we said that we found comfort in the chaos, in that's what we knew, that's what we grew up with. And so there was a comfort in being with people who treated us the same. And so, yeah, for sure, there's I think, a very common pattern there with trauma survivors. Yeah.
And I think there is also the opposite thing that happens where, as a child, I learned to dissociate, which is a great thing to do. If what is around you is just so overwhelming and painful, you can just sort of like go elsewhere in your head.
Yeah.
I think that music was a way of me surrounding myself with a safe space. It was a place that I could enter, especially when I was younger and I was practicing, and my mother would just be so pleased I was practicing. Don't bother her. It was a safe place. And I think that that's one of the reasons I became a composer, is I could, without really understanding it myself at that point, but later I realized I could speak about my trauma and about my journey and about who I was, but nobody could really know exactly in musical terms what I was talking about, because it was melodies, or, they could say, wow, that was kind of an angry piece, but they know what I was angry about. So it also had a real level of protection for me. And I think it fed into this sort of wanting to step out of all that chaos and find safe space for myself. So I think you can either do both, and dissociation is not a really attractive adult trait. When you don't even know what's going on because you've vacated the premises.
Right.
So it's not a good coping skill at all.
No, I remember when I was in EMDR therapy, when I first stepped onto the healing path 10 years ago, and my therapist said something about, well, you dissociate. And I was like, dissociate? What is that? And I remember that was the first time I'd learned about it. And I said, oh, I've lived my whole life dissociating. So yeah, I totally get it. And you just had me, like, my head just went pooh, blew up. I mean, just very, very powerful. And what a gift that was to you, right? To be able to really process so much of your trauma by releasing it through the creation of music.
But it wasn't until my daughter was born and I was 30, and I realized, and I talk about this in the beginning of my memoir, I realized that I was sort of at a crossroad. I could give her all my trauma, and she could sort of inherit it the way I inherited my mother's trauma, or I could really get to work and figure this thing out. And I went into therapy. I think she was about a year old at that point, and worked really, really hard. And what I realized about my music is that even though it was a protection, I wasn't writing at that point out of an authentic self. So that first 10 years of composing in my 20s, it was sort of, people would say they'd listen to my music and say, well, it's a great piece, but it doesn't remind me of you at all. I don't, and I always thought, oh, well, yeah. But I realized in my 30s and my 40s that I really couldn't articulate the real thing that I was going through because I didn't understand it really well.
Yeah. Yeah. When we're still stuck in the injured child thinking and not being able
Also
to.
the anger and frustration and that was just, it was such a load to carry. And in fact, I do have a wonderful chapter about forgiveness at the end of the book. And it was inspired by a dream. I had a lot of trouble, not only with my mother, but my stepfather. The dream is that I'm in the basement. And in Philadelphia, we had a dirt floor in the basement. So it's like kind of damp and I'm dragging something behind me. And I was like, the rope is cutting into my shoulder. And finally, I look back and I realize it's the shape of a body in a bag. And I am dragging this back and forth and back and forth. And I thought, wow, I woke up and I said, I've got to get out of this basement. This is not good. So I think there's so many levels of healing that it is a multi-layered thing. So getting over the anger and the guilt, and then walking through forgiveness. And finally, to me, the gift of forgiveness is, towards the end of my parents' life, I really could be with them and be kind and not be like having to leave the room because I was just suddenly couldn't breathe, or being fake. I could really be genuinely kind for them. I never got that relationship back that I hoped for, that I had lost in a childhood, but I could be gentle with them. I could ignore some of the things they were saying. I got to a place where I thought, oh yeah, my mom's just not going to acknowledge this, and I can live with it, and that was such a victory. Boy, I just felt so accomplished.
Yes.
I could
Oh,
stay in the room with them.
I so relate. Well, in our email exchanges, I had told you that my mom passed away in March after a hospice stay on my birthday. I was like, Mom, I can't believe you died on my birthday. But it was actually a beautiful gift that she did. And you had said that your mother had passed as well. I think you said 99.
She was
And
99 and 9 days old. And it was a very hard death. Very, very hard death. I don't know if I would recommend living to your 99.
yeah,
Because I think your brain really starts to deteriorate. And she had late onset Alzheimer's and was in distress. But some of it was very sweet. She goes, did you grow up in this town? And I go, yeah, I did grow up in this town. She said, I did too. I said, yeah, I know.
oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
It was such a second chance for me.
Yes, mine was too with my mom. And it was, and I love that you brought up forgiveness, because it is kind of one of those taboo subjects of, some people are like, I'll never forgive my perpetrators, or, those that preyed upon me or hurt me, my abusers. And then there's those of us who I had to go through that journey for myself because it released me. But it's not something we really talk about a lot. So I'm glad you brought it up. I know it was a very, very important journey for me.
And I think also forgiveness is never about the other person. It's always about yourself. And it's sort of like, I think my dream was very appropriate. I had this weight that was hurting me and keeping me down in this horrible place. And the way I just devised my own, and I write about it. I devised my own forgiveness path. So I decided I better, after that dream, I said, okay, I better do my forgiveness. And I said, well, I don't know how to do it, but how about when I walk the dog, I will just say, I forgive you. And I don't even have to mean it. Don't have to mean it. All I have to say is, I forgive you. So I forgive you, Tina. So I'd work on myself. I'd forgive my daughter. I'd forgive my brothers and sisters. I'd forgive my work colleagues. And I'm walking the dog, and it's a big American Staffordshire Bull Terrier. So it's pulling me, and I am walking behind this tail. And about 9 blocks later, I am hot and angry, and I said to my, I forgive you, Mom. And I'm yelling and shouting, and forgive you, my stepfather. And I think I must have single-handedly terrorized that neighborhood. Oh my God, it's 8:30 in the morning, and who is going to walk by yelling?
I love it.
And what I loved the most was that I gave myself permission to say it and not mean it, because I couldn't mean it at that point. All I had to do was say it. And I think slowly and surely, the word softened it, and the people in my life softened. And, maybe I wasn't yelling. I was like, oh yeah, I forgive you. And then I would remember things that oh my God, remember that time? Okay, I forgive you for that. And again, it was this process of just then noticing, oh, I can be with my stepfather, and when he asks me some inane, stupid question, I don't blow my stack. Wow, what a win. What a win. And that's sort of what I did. I apologized to the neighborhood.
That was a great visual. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Yes, beautiful. Well, again, I love it because forgiveness is such a personal journey. I wrote letters of forgiveness, but similar to you, I wrote them,
Mm-hmm.
and then the person would come to mind, and I'd find I was still really irritated, or just,
and another thing.
yeah. And so then I'd write some more, and then I'd add a PS and another PS, and then I'd rewrite the whole letter. And I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it until I wrote, like, from the heart, the forgiveness. And so, yeah, that's a great, I mean, it's just great that you found your way of doing it.
Right. So the idea is, you want to get to a place where you are free to go on with your life. You are no longer burdened by this. And so that's why I never think that forgiveness is about another person. And what I'd say to my mother, I forgive you. It's not like she would say, she's still stuck in her stuff. It's not that she wouldn't be available to receive that. So she'd be like, what do you need to forgive me for?
Right.
Right. So I think it's just, it's about getting peace of mind, and just free to go on to this amazing life that you are now creating for yourself, free of a lot of these burdens.
Yes. Yeah. I heard a quote once that was something along the lines of, people will only meet you as where they've been able to meet themselves. And so what you said about your mother and not being able, you just knew that she wasn't going to be able to meet you in that place. And so you just were able to say, you know what, that's her journey. This is mine.
And I think a lot of times people might come to you and say, oh, I'm so sorry about what I did to you. And that's really wonderful. But sometimes it doesn't heal the trauma. You still have lived with that uncomfortable or sad, tragic, difficult thing. So I definitely recommend it. And it's a little bit, I think it's maybe a little bit like brainwashing. It's sort of the way I stopped years and years, decades ago, stopped smoking. I was so addicted to smoking. Oh my God. But what I said to myself is, okay, every time you wake up in the morning, you have the first cigarette, you're going to tell yourself how horrible it tastes. I had to light a cigarette. Oh, this really tastes horrible. Oh my God. After 6 months, I believed myself. I go, oh, I hate the way your clothing smell. Oh,
Yes. You did brain rewiring. You did it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it, love it, love it. And as someone who was also a smoker, and I did hypnosis because I had to figure out a different way of thinking about it. But oh yeah, I remember that journey well.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Thank
awesome.
God it worked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's been like, I don't know, like
I know,
27 years ago.
decades
So
ago. Yeah.
awesome. So I know we could sit and talk about, gosh, music and forgiveness and all things wonderful, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about anything we haven't been able to touch upon yet.
Well, sometimes I've done this. For one of the podcasts, somebody asked me to write 10 things that I had learned. And, you know, as an artist and someone who's really been a lifetime artist, I'm very much committed to pointing out creativity in everyone. I know sometimes my field likes to, the classical music field likes to think that, you know, there are just a few of us composers, you know, and we're the creative ones and you're not. Well, I would like to contradict that idea. And I did a lot of work in public schools and in Philadelphia, and in public schools that were at really poor neighborhoods and really didn't have money facilities. And I just taught composition, instrument building, composition. If you didn't know music, then we'll draw it, we'll paint it, we'll somehow create a score that you can perform for your friends and your family. I think, you know, certainly that idea of trusting and valuing your creativity and knowing that it's a birthright. It's not something that you're lucky about, like, you know, oh, gee, I was lucky. No, it's like having 2 legs and 2 arms. I think sometimes when we don't notice it, or people tell us we're not something, it tends to atrophy and we ignore it. But my personal experience is that people are creative. So I think what I would say is something, but we've talked about this. I would say the last thing I have on here is dare to create yourself anew. Heartbreak, failure, being sidelines, all of these are part of life. It's how we act upon these, manage them, learn, move through them, and dare to try again in a strengthened position that matters.
Yay. Yes. I love it. And my sister, so this angel right here, for those watching the video,
Yes,
and
yeah.
my sister painted that, and you can't see it unless the light's hitting it, but it's actually, she used gold flaked paint for the wings. And so when the sun hits it, oh my gosh, it's magnificent. And she's had some of her artwork in shows and galleries and so forth. She's just a magnificent artist. And I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So I always used to say, oh my gosh, Katie, you have dad's artistry, you know, artistic talent. And I have I'm not creative at all. I'm not. And then I realized, oh, wait, I'm a really good writer. I've been told by others I'm a very good writer. And so my creativity is in my ability to write and to create through that way. And then I started
podcast.
Yeah, the podcast. And then I started taking photos and I realized, oh, I really enjoy photography and the beauty of capturing things on this island. And so then I said, well, that's creativity. And so, yeah, you're right. What I thought was, oh, I wasn't like my sister, so therefore I must not be creative. No, that's not it at all. Yeah.
Well, and I think because I don't say this lightly, but having lived, you know, these 50 years of writing music and writing a book, I kind of feel like I have a little bit of an authority on creativity. So
a little bit, yeah.
And I would say to people, yes, absolutely. Yes, you have creativity. It's about naming it. I was just writing about who names me, who calls me a composer, who calls me an author. And when I call myself a composer and author, suddenly my vision is broader. I'm not like thinking, oh, am I creative? No, well, I don't know. It's suddenly, oh yeah, okay. I can see further. So I think it's so important to value and trust your creativity and name it. Just name it.
Yeah. Beautiful. So how do folks connect with you? How do they find your music and your book and you?
So easy peasy. My website is tinadavidson.com. If you want to send me an email, it's easy to do it through my website. I love getting emails. You can buy my book on Amazon, just Tina Davidson, Let Your Heart Be Broken, Life and Music from a Classical Composer. And wherever you get music, like on Spotify or Apple Music, you just search for my name and you can find music there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'll go ahead, everyone, if you follow on the Facebook page, which I think we just hit over 7,000 followers on the Facebook page, I will put an Amazon link to the book. I'll do that today or tomorrow. So pop on the Facebook.
Yeah, I also have a Facebook page. I think it's Tina Davidson, composer and author. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So you can follow me as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be sure to tag your page in it. So you can see the post, and then people can also find that and follow your page there as well. So,
oh, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Yes. Oh gosh, I'm so glad you came across my radar. I'm so glad we connected, and it's just been a joy to sit and chat with you. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock again. Just wanted to thank you for listening to the episode today and remind you to visit my website as well, teriwellbrock.com. You can sign up for my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, which is also jam-packed with information and strategies and blog pieces and guest blog pieces and links to shows. Thanks for, again, being here and being a part of this healing space. I very much appreciate you. All right. Bye-bye.